everybody's intuitive. I think everybody is creative, and they kind of go together. There are two things that people often say, oh, I'm not creative, I'm not intuitive. I'm like, no, it's just that you haven't developed that part of yourself for whatever reason. And now you have this belief that you're neither one or the other. But the truth is that everybody is creative and intuitive. They go along together. And once you explore that part of yourself and you trust that part of yourself, your life changes in a way you can't even imagine.
Welcome to Soul-Led Creative Women, a podcast for women passionate about personal growth, seeking bold, brave ways to navigate life's ups and downs. I'm Sam Horton, and in this episode I talk with Mara Marchesi, aka the Intuition Queen. We talk all about intuition and creativity as powerful forces to help you live your most soul-aligned life. Enjoy. So today I have Mara Marchesi with me. Mara Marchesi, aka the Intuition Queen, is an intuitive and creative coach, healer, and psychic. She is a transformative force dedicated to guiding entrepreneurs and creative souls on their journey of empowerment, abundance, and self-discovery. She is a catalyst for profound change and feels into your energy field to bring to the surface all the limitations, fears, and anything that is keeping you from becoming the most powerful and aligned version of you, and alchemize it so that you can finally see and tune into the abundance frequency within you. So welcome, Mara.
Thank you for having me, Samantha.
So your business is fabulously called the Intuition Queen. So what makes you the Intuition Queen, Mara, and it empowers you to show up in the world in this way?
Well, my intuition, actually, it's a kind of a power that I didn't know how strong it was until, well, I always been very intuitive since I was a child. But the only way I could explain it at the beginning was only that I would feel people's energy, and instantly, whenever I met someone, I would kind of have a physical reaction about a person, which was either very good or not so good. Or sometimes there's something about a person that I can't put a finger on, but I just don't like that person. So that's always the way I always worked. So that for me was natural. And then I started to use my intuition because I just really feel it in my body, always felt it in my body for big things. And I learned that if I trusted the feeling, things would go well. If I didn't trust the feeling, then eventually something will go wrong. So I learned to understand that that was my guidance. But it was only when I started to learn to become a coach, and I signed up for my academy that was figuring out what kind of coach I want to be. And my friend, who is a channeler, one day we were just talking about stuff, and she was like, look, you don't really realize how powerful your intuition is. You have this gift. And she started to describe the way I felt and all of that. She was like, this is not like everybody feels their intuition. Yours is very powerful. And I'm getting a message from my guides that your name should be the Intuition Queen, because it was at the time where I was like, do I call myself Mara Marchesi Coaching, Mara Coaching? I do understand that it's a very long name and full and surname, and people might get it wrong. So I was, making all of those questions in my mind. And she's like, no, you need to be called the Intuition Queen because you don't understand how powerful your intuition is. And I was like, okay. And so I kind of took a moment because it felt such a big responsibility for me to be called the Intuition Queen. So I let it sit for a while. And then I realized that truly my intuition wasn't like everybody else. And I started to see the difference. And so realizing that I could see through certain situations, I could already tell how a story will end and things like that. And so I was like, okay, well, I think the name fits. I feel like kind of good. Like my body feels really good with it. So I stuck with the name. And it's all because my intuition is really powerful, but also because I made it a mission to help as many people as possible to, first of all, to understand how their intuition works, because some people still confuse it with fear. So that's one step. And then learn to understand how your intuition works, connect, and trust it, which is the most
Mm.
difficult part because way too many people, we're all been told not to trust it and to trust someone else. Since you're a young child, you trust your parents, you trust whoever in your lifetime. And oftentimes we learn to trust so much other people that we no longer feel safe in trusting ourselves. So that became my mission
Mm.
because I could see for me how my life changed in doing that more often and releasing all of the fears that are attached to it.
Yeah, and so I guess for women that don't feel as in tune with their intuition, it's something that you can develop and cultivate. Is that
Yeah,
what you believe? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think everybody's intuitive. I think everybody is creative and they kind of go together. There are two things that people often say, oh, I'm not creative, I'm not intuitive. I'm like, no, it's just that you haven't developed that part of yourself for whatever reason. And now you have this belief that you're neither one or the other. But the truth is that everybody is creative and intuitive. They go along together. And once you explore that part of yourself and you trust that part of yourself, your life changes in a way you
Mm.
can't even imagine. So for me, that's really important to help people with.
Yeah, and I mean, you sort of touched on it, but why do women really need to get in touch with their intuition? It's because you can really learn from that inner guidance, right? So tell us a bit about why it's so important for women to embrace this in society today.
Well, because it's about taking back your power. Like women are so powerful when we learn to trust ourselves. When we learn to make decisions out of what we feel it's right for us or for our family, whatever that is. When we start to trust who we are, then we are able to create more abundance and a more aligned life. But unfortunately, especially women have been told they need to please others in order to have success and move forward in life in whichever way. It could be in a romantic situation, this. And so we have learned to be the good girls and do what other people are saying. And this takes you on a road that I work with a lot of people that come to me, and normally it's around 30, 35, 40, 45, because I also have clients outside of those range of ages. But the majority of people kind of have an awakening around those time, those years, because you tick all of the boxes because you need to, go to a good school so you get a very good job because your parents would want better than what they had. So you go to a very good school and you take a really good job, and then you have to get married, or you have to have children, or you have to do this and you have to do that. So we get into this ticking the boxes to have what we were told was a perfect life, to then get to a certain age and think, okay, I am here, I've done all of the things, and I'm not happy.
Mm. Mm.
And I no longer want to be with this person. I no
Mm.
longer want to do this job, but I'm stuck because I have no idea how to do what I would love to do. And sometimes I have no idea what that looks
Mm.
like.
Mm.
And
It's
so
not
the crisis,
it's not always the answer you wanna hear though, is it? Your
no,
intuition is not always giving you the happy answer,
no,
right?
exactly. And so, and then a lot of the times, like, oh, I have a crisis. Like, I'm like, yeah, you have a crisis because in all of those years, the majority of the time, you've done something to please someone else and not to please yourself and not to satisfy yourself. So maybe you wanted to take a gap year and go traveling because what your soul wanted you to do, but you didn't because otherwise, I don't know, your parents will get disappointed rather than, I don't know, something else. And so we accumulate choices that are not necessarily the ones that we wish we could make for ourselves for whatever reason. And then we get to a point where, like, I don't like what I see. I don't feel good where I am. And then you feel like you don't know how to make different choices because all you have learned over time was to make choices based on different people and not on yourself. And so I help them unpack where that comes from. And slowly, the first thing is really helping them to tune into themselves. And then slowly gain that confidence that then give them the confidence to take different actions
Mm.
and slowly change their life. Because the thing is, if you cannot be honest with yourself, then it's difficult to you to make decisions that will allow you to live a honest life. So
Mm.
you're going to live the life that you're supposed to, which is not necessarily the one that you want to. And so for me, that's really important because I think that once you get to feel that freedom, you can create whatever you want. And I'm not saying that there won't be difficult decisions to make, but the way you respond to those decisions and what happens after you make those decisions is going to be way more powerful and less painful than if something happened to you and then you had to be in reactive mode because it's kind of what you wanted, but now you're not prepared.
Mm. But it does take some courage to trust your intuition and follow that intuition, right? Tell us a bit about the courage it takes.
Yeah, and I call my program The Courage to Be Yourself
Okay.
because it's what it is. Yeah, I have a 12 weeks program where I help unpack. And the reason why I called it that way is because, well, you need to go again. First of all, you need to be extra honest with yourself and say those things that you wish you could say, but you can't really say. And maybe say, I have clients that have told me, Mara, I've never said this to anybody. And I don't want to sound like a really bad person, but if I could go back in time, I would not have children, or at least not so soon. And I'm like, no judgment here. Because, being a mother is one of the most difficult things. And sometimes we rush into things because we think but reality is what it is. So which doesn't mean I hate my children. I don't want them. It just it gives you that relief of being able to say something that is so controversial for other people where people will judge you. And then decide, okay, so this is where I'm at. This is what I no longer want to put up with. How do I want to see my life? What can I do? And then it's really about learning to set up boundaries because that's one of the biggest hurdle because, starting to say no to
Mm.
people that have always known you for the person that will always say yes to everything as long as they ask, you know? And so starting to say, no, I'm not going to do this. I allow access to certain people and not to certain others. Learn to stand your ground and learn to really understand who you are and how you actually function. And this is why I do a lot of energy work and I do human design readings and color therapy because those practices really help you to understand also how you function on an energetic level. Because for me, the thing is that we could be similar, but each and every one of us, it's so unique. So maybe we can have a conversation like, oh yeah, I like that. I like that. I'm a morning person. But then we will have different facets and we have different things. And so something that works for you might not work for me. So that's important for me. Understand who you are and then start to make decision out of that person, the core of you, not the layers that you had to put up in order
Mm.
to survive and move forward. So for me, that's one of the things. And yeah, and learning to set boundaries is really one of the most important because then also all of your fears are going to start to kick in because a lot of people will push back and a lot of people will make you feel guilty for saying no, for not wanting to do certain things like you used to. And so that to me is one of the most powerful thing you could possibly do for yourself.
Mm. And, even though it sounds very empowering, right, the reality of it, it does take courage. So what do you believe are some of the common barriers and blocks that women experience when they're trying to embrace their intuition a bit more?
Well, if we talk about setting boundaries, one of the things that is really important is feeling lonely. Because when you start to set up boundaries with your circle of friends or with your family, you are going to start to receive a lot of pushback. And a lot of the people that start to go on a healing journey, they start to feel lonely because not many people understand where you're at or what's happening to you. And not many people will understand why you're setting up boundaries. So fear of being lonely, it's one thing. Fear of being abandoned and fear not feeling good enough. When you start to make decisions like, will I be able to do this? I don't think I can do it. This seems too much for me. Those are the things that are more that come on more often than not. And not feeling good enough is a big thing. Like we grew up not thinking we're worthy of a lot of things. And so it really is about unpacking what it means feeling worthy. Why don't you feel worthy? Where that comes from? Because that's one of the biggest things, because there's a difference between feeling confident and feeling worthy. You can feel confident and people can see your confidence, but then within you might not think that thing is for you. You really shouldn't be doing that. You really shouldn't be having that much success because whatever, you're fraud or whatever. So it really is unpacking all of those things, and those are the biggest obstacle for a lot of people. They might, on a mental level, might be like, yes, I want that. And as you start to do the healing work, you start to feel all of those fears, and some of them can be really powerful and can really set you back. And so the courage there is to keep going. And you might take 3 steps forward and 2 back, but that's still 1 step forward. So it really is about, okay, let's dive into this fear. Okay, I feel like I'm ready to do more work. And I always say, a lot of people before they start work with me have this this objection, which is, I am so afraid of what I can find that I don't think I will be able to handle this process. And I say to them every time, you will be given what you can handle. I can see straight away what is the biggest problem for you. But if I start from the beginning to want you to work on that, you're going to feel so much resistance that even if I push it to work on that, you won't. So it's a process. We need to peel off the layers until you get a little bit deeper. And when you get to a certain point, then you're able to deal with a bigger thing because you've done the work and now you're equipped with what you need to go deeper, see something bigger and release that. So it's a process, but yeah, it does take courage because sometimes, your intuition will take you somewhere where you actually need to do more work, where you have to really step into your fear and look at your fear in the eye and be uncomfortable for a little while
Mm.
until you learn the lesson and then you can move forward. So trusting your intuition is not always good. Like it doesn't mean that there are always good situations. Oftentimes there are the situations that really put you in a discomfort situation because you have to go through that, because
Mm.
that's part of the lessons that you need to learn to release. And then once you go through that, then you can move forward.
But as part of that process, of that healing journey and that sort of self-discovery piece, there are ways, to really that's obviously we've dealt with the serious side of things, but are also opportunities in there to sort of go back to this sort of idea of play and, real creativity. So we can find, the things that really light us up and that joy and pleasure as well as part of that intuition journey. So how important do you think creativity is, when it comes to understanding and honoring our intuition on that journey?
To me, it's super, super important because when you start to create something, whatever that is, then, you don't have to become a painter or something, but even just, you can work in your garden, you can cook something different, you can, there are so many different ways in which we can be creative in our lives. And that helps you to stop thinking about all the things you're afraid of, you're worried about. And it helps you to tune into yourself and gives you that kind of harmony within, where you're doing something that makes you feel so good, that distracts you from what is worrying you. And when you're in that space, then you can really tune into your intuition. And if you think about it, a lot of the times when we are in this space, when we get the answer to a question we've been asking ourselves maybe for a month. And now you're like, oh, that was
Just
easy.
magically
Why
floats
did,
to the surface.
right?
Yeah.
Because we start to do things that are not like, our mind stops going because it's present in doing something that actually gives us joy. And this is one of the reasons why I also work with color therapy, because colors for me are really fun to work with. And so although I do think that deep inner work can be sometimes unpleasant,
Serious.
but yeah,
Mm.
the colors help you to find the fun in it and find a different way of doing things. And, creativity helps you in so many different ways, because once you tune into that, when you start to feel good and you start to feel better about yourself, you automatically go to another level. Like if you were worried 10, you worry 5 maybe, because there is something within you that happens that changes your biology and your mind. And so you see things differently. It changes your perception. And it helps you to tune into your body, because when, I don't know, if you are painting, if you're putting some flower, if you're thinking about, okay, I want to create something different for dinner, I have friends over, I want to create this big thing. You're so present in the moment and you're doing something for yourself and for others that is joyful. So that helps you to change your state of mind, your emotions, and helps you to stay connected to yourself. And from there, you can really experience something different that takes you out of those emotions that are negative. So for me, creativity is super important. When I work with my clients, I give them to create a music playlist or whatever they are into it, because and let's say we're working on a romantic situation. I want to find love. I'm like, okay, create a love song playlist, joyful one. Please don't put the ones where they're breaking up and things like that, because what we don't realize that all of those things are energies and they stay with us. So if you keep on repeating things like "you're bad, but I love you," then I'm like, yeah, that's not a love song. You need to create a playlist where there is this true love happening, because that puts you in a state of love for yourself. And then when you experience that, then you emanate everything else. So to me, it's also really being aware of what we tell ourselves, what we feed ourselves with in all kind of ways, and try to uplift ourselves as much as possible, because
Mm.
that's a better place to make a decision from than when you are in a state of anxiety or fear.
Absolutely. And do you believe then that we're all creative, and that we've all got creative gifts to share with the world?
I do. I do. I think that a lot of people. Oh, I was talking to someone the other day, and this person is an accountant. Is like, I'm not creative. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you are. I'm pretty sure that in the way you also do your job, as much as you're about numbers and there isn't that much creativity, but whenever you need to resolve a problem, you might go a little bit beyond what you can actually and find a solution. And it was like, yeah, I kind of do. And I was like, well, that's a way to be creative.
Mm.
But I'm also 100% sure that everybody of us has a passion, has some sort of inclining to something. You might really love music and you might really love singing in the shower. You might really like, I don't know, traveling. You might really like going to, I don't know, different places. Creativity is in a lot of different ways. The problem is that as we grow up, we stop using it and we think it's only for children. So if you're maybe a parent, maybe you can be a little bit creative with your children, but you still can think that that part of you is there because it's related to your children. So you have to do it because you have to play with your children. You have to help them do something for school. And so that part of creativity, it's really not yours.
Mm.
It's related to your children. So it comes out because you have to help them. But the truth is that we all have it. And we just stop using it. And so we stop doing things that are fun. We stop doing things that give us joy. And we think that we need to do certain things all the time. And to me, it's like, no, sometimes, life is busy for everybody. So
Mm,
sometimes you don't have the time. But if you take one night and, you go and do something, you go to a concert, or you go, if you're a musician, or if you used to like, I don't know, playing guitar, and you just go one night out with your friends or whatever, there are so many possibilities out there to experience something that gives you joy without having to become something,
mm,
but just for your sake of feeling good about yourself.
mm,
And so for me, it really is, everybody is creative. Some people use it more, experience it more, and they have more of an attunement to it. So maybe when they start, something bigger happens, or they wish they became something, then they to go a different way. And so they
mm,
still have that creativity within them, that dream within them that is kind of like pushing.
mm.
Some others just need a little bit of something to do, and, to just feel better. So for me, everybody is creative. And it's just like a muscle. The more you do something creative, the more you realize how creative you actually are.
And you need to give things a go, right? You need to be a
Yeah.
beginner again, right?
Yeah,
If people are scared to
absolutely.
start from the beginning. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it might look
But
them make them look silly or something, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like here, for example, sometimes they do this thing where they give you something to paint, like a Picasso or something, and you go there, you have a drink, and you can go by yourself, you can go with your friends. It doesn't matter, but it's the fun of it. It's, using colors. Colors are really powerful
Mm,
energetically because they work with our emotions and we don't even know it. So, it's just going there to do something without having to be the best at doing it or something like that. Like yesterday, I was with some friends and we were playing this game with music. And I love music, and I should have been one of the one to win all the time. And I was like, my brain was gone, but it was so much fun. I didn't win, but it was so much fun. And it just gets you in that fun mood. And we laughed so hard. And we all were very, very happy at the end of the day because we were together, we were playing, and it was so much fun. And we were all around 40 years old. So it wasn't a child thing, but it puts you in that state of mind that helps you to feel better about everything in your life.
mm. And do you think it's possible then to go on a personal growth journey or a transformation journey and not tap into creativity somewhere along the way? You know what I mean? Do you think it's an important part of personal growth?
Yeah, I do. And I don't think you can, like, I think that it's impossible to block that part if you're doing that journey, because creativity is within us in so many different ways.
Mm,
And so you can be creative because maybe you're the one organizing all of the trips for the family, and you're the one that says, okay, we're going here and then we're going there and we do it this way. And to me, it's just so much part of it because creativity is in our body, talking about our body, is stored in our second chakra, which is where we procreate as women, but also as men. And so creation is, we're always creating. We're always creating every single day. We're creating something. And so when you unleash that part of yourself, you just unleash more opportunities to create what you actually want in your life. But if you stop creating, if you stop tuning into yourself, that's when you feel stuck because you cannot see the abundance and the possibility out there. And so that's why a lot of people, feel stuck, is because it's work, family problems, work, family responsibilities. That's when you start to feel stuck because there is no fun, there is no pleasure, and there is no joy. It's always the same thing, always the same people, oftentimes not necessarily the right people around you. And so it's a vicious circle where you don't have fun, you can feel relaxed, and it just feels like all it's heavy. And so when you tune into that part of yourself, you release a lot of the heaviness because you
mm,
tune into fundamentally your inner child, and you allow your inner child to play more and release a lot of blockages that you might have in this moment.
Yeah, otherwise you're really living by someone else's rules, right? Or someone
Yeah.
else's creativity or someone else's design because you're not, you know, tuning into your own power.
Yeah. Yeah. Which we go back to the beginning of this conversation.
Yeah. So how has creativity then been part of your own empowered story?
Well, I always been someone that loves visual and colors and doing things. I love art so much. I love music so much. So for me, creativity has been music and creating stuff. But I'm not someone that creates a lot. But one of the things that I used to do when I was a teenager, I used to be a crazy fan of a British boy band. Take that. I don't know if you know them. And I used to have, before internet came, I used to have a lot of pen pals, and we used to have what is the Facebook now. So we used to create those friendship books where you would put your what you liked, and then you will decorate with glitters and whatever. So I would spend afternoons doing this and connecting to people around Italy and England and everywhere in the world. And I really had like a really great group of friends. But to me, it's always been music. It's one of the things that always been my creative outlet, and colors have always been something really important. Art generally, I'm always gravitating around artists, musicians, and those kind of things. It just, even if I'm not one, but I'm interested in how they do the things and how creativity makes me feel. Like I feel really good when I am tuning into music, when I'm tuning into. So yeah, but for me, it's more like I use a lot of colors. I'm always very colorful, wardrobe wise, very aware what kind of color I want to wear, what kind of, how do I want to feel. So that's one thing for me that, especially once I learned that there was a thing called color therapy, I was like, I need to know more. So, but yeah, for me, it's always been art and music, art of any kind. Always been someone really interested in. And yeah, so
Mm.
that's been for me. And I try to use this to understand when I work with my clients, what is that particular thing that for you actually activates that part of yourself.
Mm.
I worked with a client recently, and it's also one of my episode of the podcast. She shared her journey, and she had this thing about photography, but she was working part time, and she's a mother. She was in the state of like, I'm feeling like I'm losing myself. So as we move forward, then she picked up photography, and we started to do more work on that. And now she's going to have an exhibition, and she's like, this changed my life because I tuned into something that I always wanted to do and I never did because of I need to get a better job because, a creative job isn't not a job for a lot of people. And that just changes the way you look at life. And a lot of things that oftentimes give you that heaviness of, I should do this and that, become less important because you start to change perception and you give more importance to what really matters and less to what doesn't.
Yeah. And following that kind of trail of what feels really good to you, forgetting about
Yeah.
what everyone else thinks you should be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what does your self-care routine look like then? How do you care for yourself on a regular basis, week to week?
Well, I do a lot of meditation. So one of the things I do every morning is I wake up, have my breakfast, and then I meditate and I journal pretty much every day, especially when I feel like there are things that are happening or I need to release stuff. But for me, meditation and journaling are super powerful because it helps me to relax, to connect, and then I can just write down everything that I feel it's coming through,
Mhm.
and then I can actually see that maybe I've been a little bit dramatic here or something, or maybe, I just get downloads and things
Mm,
like that. So that's one of the things that is most important to me. And then try to do as much of the things that I loved. So
mm.
music. So that could be going to concerts, or I love London because there are so many different places where people used to, like famous musicians used to live, and I like to do music tours. So I start to go on a journey, or okay, so this person lived here and then they played here and then they did this. It's just for my sake. I really love it. It just makes me feel connected to the musician that I love.
Mm,
I read a lot of books, and then there are so many museums here. So
mm,
try to go to galleries, connect. I love connecting to people that do this as a job.
mm,
I
mm,
feel just the conversations with them are just so it's extraordinary. So yeah, I try to say as much as possible in this world, even if I don't do anything practical, but
mm,
it just like being surrounded by this modalities just make me feel so good.
mm.
And of course,
Beautiful.
and colors, because that's my
Yeah.
thing. But
It's
yeah,
a great mood shifter. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so for all the women then who want to feel more in tune with their intuition, what powerful questions would you have them ask themselves today?
Well, first of all, it's not a question. What I would suggest to them is to actually start to feel themselves. And so, whatever it is going on with you, ask yourself, how is this helping me? How is this making me feel good? And your body's going to answer to you. And that's when you start to connect. And I know that a lot of the times that I say this to people, they're like, "Oh, but this makes me feel fearful," or and I'm like, "Okay, stay there and connect to whatever emotion is coming through, especially when it's not a positive emotion. Because the point is to really tune into yourself and try to figure out what is that emotion saying to you. Because for me, every emotion is there to tell you something. Obviously, if it's a positive emotion, you're not going to stay there and question, why am I happy? Although some people do. But, if you're happy, you just want more of that happiness. But when you feel fear or when you feel anxiety, don't be afraid to tune into, because there's so much that can be said. Like your emotions have so much to tell you. And normally it's about where you need to look at. What do you need to release? So tune into your body, ask questions about whatever is going on with you that you need an answer to, and then stay with your body and listen to the answer that your body gives you, because your body is so powerful.
Mm. Yeah, that's great. It's beautiful. So, how can people get to know you better, Mara, and get a real feel for the work that you do?
So I have a podcast that is called Intuitive Queens, and you can hear me chatting a lot, especially when I have my solo episode. I just love chatting, talking. So, but I give advice and tips and share stories, and I also have guests that share their stories, so you can have a better understanding of my energy and what I do and the topics that I talk about. It's also on YouTube for people that are more visual, so you can also see, a little bit more. Or you can find me on my website, theintuitionqueen.com, or Instagram, The Intuition Queen.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on today, Mara. I really enjoyed chatting to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Start reconnecting with your inner creative magic with a powerful 10-minute meditation. This meditation is designed to help you reconnect to yourself, your creativity, and spark your inner wisdom by guiding you to discover your own unique and personal sacred creative space as you tune into your intuition. Please head to samhorton.co/gift.